Good morning, everyone. Uh, Today we are covering disorders of thought. So, thought is any mental or intellectual activity involving an individual's subjective consciousness. Coming to the disorders of intelligence, intelligence is ability to think and act rationally and logically, and it does not continue to develop after 18 years of age. IQ is 100 multiplied by mental age divided by chronological age. Mental age is score achieved by average child of the corresponding chronological age. Decline in intelligence can be detected for the first time at about 35 years of age. For people more than 18 years of age, IQ is obtained by using 18 as arbitrary divisor. Most intelligence tests are designed to give a mean IQ of the population of 100 with standard deviation of 50. Now, learning and intellectual disability. True group of subjects with low intelligence are subcultural mental defect, that is, individuals whose intelligence is at the lower end of the normal range and is therefore a quantitative deviation from the normal. With learning disability comprise individuals with specific learning disability. Learning disability is characterized as borderline IQ, that is between 70 and 90. Mild, it's 50 to 69. Moderate is 35 to 49. Severe is 20 to 34. And profound is less than 20. Dementia is loss of intelligence resulting from brain disease characterized by disturbance of multiple cortical functions, including thinking, memory, comprehension, and orientation. Schizophrenic deterioration. Individuals with schizophrenia tend to exhibit specific defects in multiple cognitive domains. It does not represent true dementia, past termed as schizophrenic dementia. Amentia was synonym for mental subnormality. Now, coming to disorders of thinking, types of thinking. First is undirected fantasy thinking, which in past also termed as autistic deistic thinking. It's escape from reality. It's of short duration, for example, daydream. Then comes the imaginative thinking, which does not go beyond the rational possible, which is seen in creative thinking and among the artists. Then comes the rational thinking or the conceptual thinking, which attempts to solve the problem. Now, undirected fantasy or autistic thinking, it is quite common, but certain individuals, when faced repeated disappointments or adverse life circumstances, may engage in excessive undirected fantasy. It is a feature of schizophrenia. Bleuler included it as one of his 4 A's of his schizophrenia. According to him, schizoid individual becomes schizophrenic when his autistic thinking becomes uncontrollable. The excessive autistic thinking in schizophrenia is partly the result of formal thought disorder. Now, the disorders of thought, which includes stream, possession, content, and form. Disorders of thought classification includes disorders of intelligence and disorders of thinking. Disorders of thinking include disorders of stream of thought, obsessions, compulsions, and disorders of possession of thought, disorders of the content of thought, and disorders of the form of thought. Disorders of stream of thought. Disorder of the stream of thought include disorder of the order of tempo, which includes flight of ideas, inhibition or slowing of thinking, and circumstantiality. Disorders of continuity of thinking includes perseveration and thought blocking. Flight of ideas. Thoughts follow each other rapidly. There is no general direction of thinking. There is no goal in thinking. Easily diverted to external stimuli and by internal superficial associations. Connections between successive thoughts appear to be due to chance factors. Absence of determining tendency to thinking allows the association of train of thoughts to be determined by chance relationships, verbal associations of all kinds, such as assonance, repeats vowel sounds, alliteration, repeat consonant sounds, clang associations, proverbs, maxims, and cliches. Reverse the sequence of record of flight of ideas, the progression of thought can be understood. For example, a maniac patient was asked where she lived. She replied, Birmingham, king standing, see the king, he is standing, king, king, sing, bird on the wing, bird, dirt, dirt. Seen in mania typically. Schizophrenia, when they are excited, occasionally flight of ideas can be seen. In organic states, in intoxication, it can be seen. Also in lesions of hypothalamus, which are associated with range of psychological effects, including features of mania and disturbances of personality. In acute mania, these are so severe that incoherence occurs because one thought is formulated into words, another forces its way forward. Clang associations, a pattern of speech in which sounds rather than meaningful relationships appear to govern word choice, so that the intelligibility of speech is impaired and redundant, not useful words are introduced. Some believe clang associations have rhyming as well as alliterations. Then comes the prolixity. In hypomania, so-called ordered flight of ideas occurs in which, despite many irrelevance, a patient is able to return to the task in hand. Here, clang and verbal associations are not marked. Speech of emergence of thoughts is not as fast as in flight of ideas. Although these patients cannot keep accessory thoughts out of mainstream, they only lose the thread for a few moments and finally reach their goal. Patients have lively embellishment of their thinking. Untrue details is added to make story interesting. Then comes the circumstantiality. It occurs when thinking proceeds slowly with unnecessary and trivial details. But finally, the point is reached. The goal is never lost, but the thinking proceeds towards it by intricate and convoluted path, explained as a result of weakness of judgment and egocentricity. Seen in epileptic personality change, dullards who are trying to be impressive, pedantic obsessional personalities, tedious elaborations and need to interrupt is seen. Tangentiality is replying to question in oblique, tangential, and irrelevant manner. Then comes the inhibition or slowing or retardation of thinking. Train of thought is slowed down and number of ideas and mental images that present themselves is decreased. Person may fail to reach the goal. Experienced by patients as difficulty in making decisions, lack of concentration, loss of clarity of thinking. Patient complaints of loss of memory may lead to development of overvalued delusional idea that thoughts are going out of his mind. This is seen in depression and manic stupor. Apparent cognitive defects in slowing of thinking in depression may lead to a mistaken diagnosis or dementia. Now, coming to the disorder of continuity of thinking, it includes perseveration and thought blocking. Perseveration occurs when the mental operations persist beyond the point at which they are relevant and thus prevent the progress of thinking. It may be verbal or ideational. For example, a patient may be asked the name of previous prime minister and he replies Manmohan Singh. On when asked who is the current one, he replies Manmohan Singh. No, I mean Manmohan Singh. Seen in organic disorders of brain and catatonia, it is not a problem of volition which helps to differentiate it from verbal stereotype. Verbal stereotypy is frequent spontaneous repetition of word or phrase that is not in a way related to current situation. Echolalia, a pattern of speech in which the patient echoes words or phrases of interview. It is often uttered with mocking and mumbling, though there is no such intention in true echolalia. Both perseveration and echolalia have repetition as their core feature. One's own words or another words. Both are found in similar conditions, that is organic states and schizophrenia, and very rarely in mania. Palilalia is when patient repeats the perseverated word with increasing frequency. Logoclonia is when the last syllable of last word is repeated. Palilalia and logoclonia occur in organic states, especially Alzheimer's disease. Now coming to thought blocking, also known as snapping, occurs when there is sudden arrest of train of thought, leaving a blank. An entirely new thought may then begin. In patients who have some insight, this may be terrifying experience. It is highly suggestive of schizophrenia. Also seen in patients who are exhausted and anxious, may lose thread of conversation and appear to have thought block. May give rise to delusions that thoughts have been withdrawn from head. This is seen in schizophrenia. Now coming to disorders of possession of thought. First one, it includes obsessions and compulsions, and thought alienation, which includes thought insertion, thought withdrawal, and thought broadcasting. Obsessions, a thought that persists and dominates an individual's thinking, despite the individual's awareness that the thoughts is either entirely without purpose or else has persisted and dominated their thinking beyond the point of relevance or usefulness. It's unpleasantly repetitive, intrusive, ego dystonic against the person's will. Important feature is it leads to cause the sufferer great anxiety and guilt and appears against patient's will. For example, prudish person experiencing sexual thoughts, religious person experiencing blasphemous thoughts, a timid person experiencing a torture of thought of murder. Nowadays, most common form of obsession, mother with an obsession that she may harm the baby. Form of obsessions, it includes obsessional images. These are vivid images that occupy the patient's mind. At times, they may be so vivid that they can be mistaken for pseudo hallucination. For example, patient was obsessed by an image of his own gravestone that clearly had his name engraved on it. Obsessional ideas take the form of rumination on all kind of topics, ranging from why the sky is blue to the possibility of committing fellatio with God. Contrast thinking, in which the patient is compelled to think the opposite of what is said. For example, compulsive blasphemy, a case of devout person who was compelled blasphemous rhymes so that when the priest says God Almighty, she was compelled to think sword all shit. Obsessional impulses, maybe impulses to touch, count, arrange objects, or impulses to commit antisocial acts. So there is impulse in mind which is acted on, then it is repeated again and again and resulting in compulsion. Obsessional fear or phobias consists of groundless fear that the patient realizes is dominating without a cause, must be distinguished from hysterical and learned phobias. Compulsions, merely obsessional motor acts, may result from an obsessional impulse that leads directly to the action, that is compulsions occur without obsessions as well. They may be mediated by an obsessional mental image or thought. For example, obsessional fear of contamination leads to compulsive washing. Obsessional thought resulting in compulsive act, resulting in relief only temporarily. Obsessions occur in depression, obsessional states, schizophrenia, occasionally in organic states, and in post-encephalitic states. Compulsive features appear to be particularly common in post-encephalitic Parkinsonism. Thought alienation. Here the patient has experienced that their thoughts are under the control of outside agency or others are participating in their thinking. Thought insertion, it's common in schizophrenia, but not unique. Here patient knows the thoughts are being inserted into their minds and they recognize as foreign. Thought deprivation. Thoughts suddenly disappear and are withdrawn from their mind by a foreign influence. It is subjective experience of thought blocking and omission. Then comes the thought broadcasting. Everyone else is thinking in unison with them. Others can hear his thoughts. Psychoanalytic interpretation, there is loss of ego boundaries. That is, boundary between ego and surrounding world has broken down. Nowadays, thought alienation forms an important component of diagnostic criteria of schizophrenia in ICD-10. Now coming to disorder of form of thought. Formal thought disorders. Formal thought disorders are characterized by disturbance in the form or flow and connectivity of thought. Disorder of form of thinking. Form of thought mean arrangement of thought, that is how logically they are connected. Formal thought disorder, synonym for disorder of conceptual or abstract thinking that are more common in schizophrenia and coarse brain disease. Schizophrenic formal thought disorder can be divided into two subgroups: negative formal thought disorder and positive formal thought disorder. Negative formal thought disorder, patient has lost his previous ability to think but does not produce any unusual concepts. In positive formal thought disorder, patient produces false concepts by blending together incongruous, unsuitable elements. Luller regarded schizophrenia as a disorder of association between thoughts, characterized by process of condensation, displacement, and misuse of symbols. Condensation, two ideas with something in common are blended into a false concept. Displacement, one idea is used for an associated idea. Misuse of symbols involves using the concrete aspects of the symbol instead of a symbolic meaning, also known as concrete thing. For example, patient with schizophrenia said, I was feeling high and I do not want to fly off. So I have tried these dumbbells to my ankle. Tangentiality, patient tends to wander away from the intended point such that the central idea is not communicated. For example, when asked, where is your home address? Answer a patient gives, you touched a good topic. I bought my home for 3 crore, but due to demonetization, I had only 70 lakhs. And I don't know, I'm very frustrated and pissed off. Word salad, also known as schizophasia, incoherent and incomprehensible mixture of words and phrases. Neologism, new words that are constructed by the patient, ordinary words that is used in a new way. New words are such formatted that derivation cannot be understood. Distortion of another word that has been incorrectly constructed. In motor aphasia, phonetic structure of word is distorted. Then loosening of association, speech disturbance involving a disorder of logical progression of thought, manifested as a failure to communicate verbally adequately. Unrelated and unconnected ideas shift from one subject to another. Then clang association refers to a sequence of thoughts stimulated by the sound of preceding words rather than their meaning, may lead to rhyming and is seen in manic patients. Cameron grouped the symptoms of disorganization resulting from functional or organic states into incoordination, interpretation, fragmentation, over-inclusion. Over-inclusion is an inability to maintain the boundaries of the problem and to restrict operations within their normal limits. Asyndesis is lack of adequate connection between successive thoughts. Metonyms, the imprecise approximations in which patient uses some substitute term or a phrase instead of more exact one. Now, Goldstein, in schizophrenia and in coarse brain disease, there is loss of abstract attitude so that the thinking becomes concrete. In the former, the patient is not lost, has not lost their vocabulary. Chapman said that the schizophrenic cannot free himself from major meaning of the world. Pain tests of the concrete thinking, which are performed badly by the schizophrenics with formal thought disorder, are in fact tests for over-inclusions. Schizophrenics who showed over-inclusion showed more psychomotor slowness. Schneider isolated 5 features of formal thought disorder: derailment, thought slides onto subsidiary thought; substitution, a major thought is substituted by a subsidiary one; omission, senseless omission of thought or part of it; fusion, heterogeneous elements of thoughts are interwoven with each other; and driveling, there is disordered intermixture of constituent parts of one complex thought. Transitory thinking, the problem of consistency, derailment, substitution, omission occur. Both grammatically and syntactical structures are disturbed. Driveling thinking, problem of organization. Patient loses his preliminary organization of thoughts so that all the constituent parts get muddled up. Desultory thinking, problem of continuity, grammatical and syntactically correct, but sudden ideas force their way in from time to time. Here, continuity is loosened. In omission, intention itself is interrupted, and there is gap. According to Schneider, three features of healthy thinking. It includes constancy, characteristic persistence of a completed thought, whether or not it is simple or complicated in its content. Organization, contents of thoughts are related to each other in consciousness and do not blend with each other, but are separated in an organized way. Continuity, even the most heterogeneous thoughts, sudden ideas, or observation which emerge are arranged in order in the whole content of consciousness. Now, coming to disorder of content of thought. Delusions. Delusions are unshakable assumptions about the world the patient inhabits, which he does not create by a process of logical conscious thought, but from false premises. Cannot be deducted from other morbid phenomena. Delusions, like ideas, can be deducted from other morbid phenomena. Overvalued ideas, thoughts that because of the associated feeling tone takes precedence over all other ideas for a long time. Primary delusions are seen in schizophrenia, certain organic states, as well as psychotic illness. Schneider suggested that delusional experience can be reduced to three forms: delusional mood, delusional perception, and sudden delusional idea. In the delusional mood, the patient has the knowledge that there is something going on around him that concerns him, but does not know what it is. Delusional perception is the attribution of a new meaning, usually in sense of self-reference, to a normally perceived object. In the sudden delusional idea, a delusion appears fully formed in the patient's mind. Now, coming to secondary delusions and systematization, can be understood as arising from some other morbid experience, such as depressive mood, psychogenic, or stress reactions. Example, a depressed person with diseased self-esteem may think he is responsible for a crime which he did not commit in reality. Illusion of grandiosity. Patient may believe that they are God, the Queen of England, a famous rock star, skilled sports person, or great inventor. These delusions may be supported by auditory hallucinations, which tells the patient that they are important. Most commonly associated with manic psychosis in the context of bipolar affective disorder. Delusion of persecution. It may occur in context of primary delusional experiences, auditory hallucinations, bodily hallucinations, or experiences of past. Ideas and delusion of references can occur in schizophrenia, depressive illness, and other psychotic illnesses. Now, delusion of love, also described as fantasy lover syndrome and erotomania. The patient is convinced that some person is in love with them, although the alleged lover may never have ever spoken. Might pester the victim with letters and unwanted attention of all kinds. Occasionally, it may be found in abnormal personality state. Patient develops concern about health and may develop delusions or overvalued ideas of ill health. This is delusion of ill health. Individuals with delusions of ill health believe that they have a serious disease such as cancer, tuberculosis, AIDS, a brain tumor, etc. Delusions of ill health can be seen in depressive illness and in schizophrenia. Now, coming to delusion of guilt, it is seen in mild depression. The patient may be self-reproachful and self-critical. In severe depressive illness, self-reproach may take the form of delusions of guilt when the patient believes that they are a bad or evil person and have ruined their family. In very severe depression, the delusions may even appear to take on a grandiose character, and the patient measure that they are the most evil person in the world. Delusions of guilt may also give rise to delusions of persecution. Then delusion of poverty, a patient with delusion of poverty is convinced that they are impoverished and believe that their family is going through misery. It is typical of depression. Then the delusion of infidelity. Patient tends to have morbid jealousy. Often he is suspicious, sensitive, and mildly jealous before the onset of illness. Delusion of infidelity may occur in schizophrenia, organic brain disorders, alcohol dependence syndrome, and in affective psychosis. Nihilistic delusions occurs when patient denies the existence of their body, mind, their loved ones, and the world around them. They may assert that they have no mind, no intelligence, or that their body or body parts do not exist. It is seen in severe agitated depression, schizophrenia, and in delirium. Thank you.